If I handed you my phone today, you'd notice something almost immediately. The photo on my lock screen. It's a photo I took in Paris in 2017. The Eiffel Tower stands on one side, the Seine River runs through the middle, and the sky is glowing with the different shades of a sunset and a few tones of blue. I've had newer phones since then, better cameras, thousands of newer pictures, but I've never changed that lock screen picture. Not because it's my best photograph, although I like it a lot, but because it's a photograph that it changed me. That picture reminds me of a simple truth. Your life is one moment, one trip, one conversation, possibly one adventure away from changing forever. Before that trip, I had never really traveled overseas. I mean, I'd been to Canada, Mexico, but Europe, that felt like a whole other world. And then one evening, my parents and I found ourselves sitting beside the Seine River, waiting for the Eiffel Tower to light up. Nothing dramatic necessarily happened. Nobody gave a life-changing speech. There wasn't some movie soundtrack playing in the background. We simply sat there. The sun slowly disappeared. The city grew quiet. People around us laughed and talked in languages I couldn't understand, and languages I could. Fresh pastries drifted through the air. The river reflected the last light of the day, and then the Eiffel Tower began to sparkle. It's difficult to explain. It wasn't just beautiful, it was awakening. For the first time, I realized the world wasn't just something to read about. It was something to experience. I didn't want to simply hear about different cultures anymore. I wanted to walk through them. I didn't want to just watch travel documentaries. I wanted to stand in those places myself, to taste the unfamiliar food, to hear the unfamiliar languages, to smell cities that had existed for centuries before I was born. Because here's something photographs can't quite capture. Photographs don't record the smells. They don't record the cool evening air. They don't preserve the conversations happening all around you. But your memory does. And every time I unlock my phone, all of those memories come rushing back. At the bottom of that lock screen are 4 ordinary words. Press home to unlock. Most people never think about them twice, but I do. Because every time I read them, I think about what that trip unlocked inside of me. Curiosity and wonder, a love for cultures different from my own, a desire to keep exploring. That trip unlocked a version of me I didn't know existed. Now, wherever I travel, there's almost always a moment when someone says, "Are you ready to go?" On that trip, it was my dad. We had been sitting there watching the Eiffel Tower sparkle when afterwards he finally said, "Whenever you're ready." And I looked back at him and said, "I'm never ready, so we better just go now." Because I knew I would never want to leave that moment. Not because Paris was perfect, but because I knew something inside me had changed. Life, I had learned, has these dividing lines. There is the version of you before a certain experience and the version of you after it. Sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's a loss. Sometimes it's meeting someone who changes your life. And sometimes it's simply watching the sunset behind the Eiffel Tower. Once you've truly experienced something, you can't unknow it. You can't untaste it if you've tasted it. You can't unhear what you've heard. You can't unsee what you've seen. And if you're lucky, you can't become the person you were before. So here's my encouragement to you today. Go somewhere that stretches your perspective. Have the conversation that feels unfamiliar. Try the food you can't pronounce. Learn from people whose lives look different from yours. You don't have to travel halfway across the world, but you do have to leave the boundaries of what is familiar. Because somewhere beyond your comfort zone is a moment waiting to unlock something inside of you. You may not know exactly where it is. You may not recognize it while it's happening, but one day, years later, you might look at a photograph, a ticket stub, or a passport stamp and realize that was the day your life quietly divided into 2 chapters. The person you were before and the person you've been becoming ever since. Sometimes all it takes is a moment.